Hey Bellows Falls, it's Mike Smith and Marty Gallagher. We're here for a special edition of The Feed on June 22nd, second full day of summer.
Yes.
Got some heat going on.
We definitely have some
We're
heat
going to be
going on.
talking with Kelley Tully here in a minute. She's going to tell us about the new recovery relief package that the legislature has just passed, and I think it has to go to the Senate for final approval, but we'll be talking about that. But first, we're going to talk with Marty about local events.
Local events. First, a huge shout out to the Bellows Falls Union High School staff and support staff and administration and anybody that helped out with the graduation on Thursday night. They did a great job. It was a really nice graduation. It was pretty much seemed like a, other than the social distancing and the masks, it was just like a regular graduation. And then huge shout out to the town for the support that was out there when the kids did the parade.
Yeah, it was really nice.
There was people on like every street corner and lining, social distancing, lining the streets, but a lot of support for the graduates.
Yeah, excellent time. And so much better than, I don't want to name names, but some other towns around here have done it, and it just hasn't been the same. I think Bellows Falls went above and beyond when they sort of pushed for that that more traditional graduation.
Yep. And reminding everyone, since it is the first or second day of summer, that the farmers markets have reopened. And this year, the farmers market is sponsored by both Great River Co-op, say that 10 times fast, Great River Co-op, and the Sustainable Valley Group. And they've combined the Vermont and New Hampshire markets. So the New Hampshire version of the market, Greater Falls Market, will be on Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 7. And they're doing it right next to Hungry Diner, which is actually hopefully the site of the Great River Co-op, should they get up and running. And then the Bellows Falls Farmers Market is Fridays, the traditional Fridays from 4 to 7, but it's back at the Waypoint Center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not in Hetty Green, it's back at the Waypoint Center, which I'm guessing might make a lot of people happier. I don't know if it ever really took off at the...
Yeah.
In theory, it seemed like a good space, Hetty Green, but I think the Waypoint Center is just a little more conducive to it.
I think you're right.
So
good.
Mark your calendars. You can go Wednesdays to Walpole, easy to remember, or Fridays to the Waypoint Center.
Great. And now we have Kelley Tully with us, and she's our new representative, doing all sorts of good work up in Montpelier. But I guess you don't do it from Montpelier; you do it from here, right?
I do it from Rockingham.
So tell us, this is exciting. Tell us about what's happening and what you guys just did.
Well, right now we'll go over some of the Corona funds that we've been able to disperse or at least send to the Senate. But we also are kind of in a full court press the rest of the week. This was great timing. Thanks for working this out. We are going to be in
Oops.
Well, this is part of the problem with live TV and...
We're going to actually hope to finish this portion of the session on the 26th, but then we're going to go back in August and September.
Oh, okay.
And then we will finish the rest of the budget year in August and September, and some of the bills that seem to not take as much precedence as the ones that we want to get to this week. So that's tentatively the plan of how that's going to work.
Good.
So the session will not be over until then.
Wow, busy. But this week you're working on this $121 million aid package? That's big numbers for Vermont.
It seems that it went quickly, though. We did, as far as what we've passed so far between the S-350, which was last week, and then the House bill this past week. So 2 Fridays in a row, we were able to get the work done. So we did. We do have the $356 million to stabilize healthcare and human services system. So those fundings that are eligible for private practice, for hospitals, for dentists, for other people in healthcare that can apply for the grants for that money. as well, and any other, some of the human services with some mental health and, it is all encompassing. It's not just one part of healthcare. I hope to, help all of the, portions of counseling and mental health work. The other part is there's 196 million for businesses and economic development, and that's broken down into lots of different areas. We do have some money in there for a little bit of agriculture as well, but there's also a separate portion for agriculture. And so as far as the business sector goes, we did 2 weeks, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, the $52 million for, essentially that money is going towards businesses in restaurants and accommodations, and it's really made, that portion of the bill is made for the businesses that pay rooms and meals tax. There's also 20 million for the other portions that do not pay those taxes. We do have, let's see, the housing and homeless, they did put some money, the $91 million that's going towards the housing and homeless. So we've been spending, the state of Vermont has been spending approximately $100,000 a day to house families in hotels. So this money is going to hopefully help with the housing insecurity, getting people back into regular housing that they can count on. Also, some of the money will go to, it could go to landlords that are seeking help to get the houses up to spec if they're not currently being rented because they don't meet health code, or they don't have the whether it's plumbing or electricity, and it's kind of across the board as far as that goes. There's also part of that money is going to new construction. If there's an organization that can put housing together or has a plan that can help relieve some of the homelessness, that's part of the plan as well, of that money. We've got 37 million going to higher education, so all of the colleges in the state. There's 50 million for pre-K education, 43 million for broadband and connectivity, and that's part of the communication districts, union districts that are in place, and some towns want to jump on board. They certainly can get on board, and that's to get broadband to areas that either don't have it yet, or because I know there's different parts of our state that have some of the wireless and others that have cable systems as well. So that's money, and also to hit the remote areas if they can as much as possible. I think with as everybody knows, and Marty referred to the education and having everybody finish online, and hopefully this is going to aid those, because we're still, I'm sure, families in our district also that did not have easy access to internet. So hopefully that broadband can go help families in multiple ways, having access to the internet for education, as well as they've been doing a lot of telehealth with that, and hopefully be able to expand that in the future.
Right.
I know we talked before that some of the processes that we put in place during COVID to help get through it, we will hopefully carry with us the good stuff that worked.
I agree.
And hopefully some of the portion is access to healthcare through telehealth would be, I think, a huge boost for the people who can't necessarily get to the providers, and hopefully that will work. There's 35 million for agriculture and forestry leave, and some of that money also is going to go to outdoor education or outdoor businesses, whether it's a nonprofit or nonprofit, so they're eligible for some of that funding to get the economy going. 16 million for our justice system, 13 million for municipal governments. And those are just really broad categories, but if you drill down, depending on the topic, the money such as the housing, and it also can cover, some of the money, there was $9 million in all the funding that's going to help people pay off some rent if need be, and that's through SEFCA. They're having some of the monies go through them to help people with rent forgiveness. Also, some of the monies can go towards paying utilities off, public utilities such as natural gas, electricity, and water bills. So those are some of where some of the bonders can get some relief from some of those bills as well.
Yeah, I see
that's kind of, so shoot some questions at me.
So I want to ask you a little bit about timeline. What does it look like? How soon might this money become available? And then how might people be able to access it? I mean, how will that be administered?
Well, the ones that are related to businesses, whether they're restaurants, I'm sure gyms, any business that can show a 75% loss of revenue between March 13th and I believe the date was September, and it compared to last year versus this year are eligible for the funding, and that's going to be through grants. So we had initially thought maybe loans would work. I think that's Governor Scott had initially, when we were told how much money and what the funds could be used for. Initially, the thought was maybe some loans, but the money has to just be paid out straight, no loans involved. They're going to be grants. And from the date it passes, what it had said in our bill was that it would be available to apply for the grants 10 days after passing.
Wow.
So as soon as everything, as far as the business grants go, that's going to be handled through the Department of Taxes, because everybody pretty much has to report some form of taxes.
Yeah.
And then you just use that account to then use, so if you already have that account set up, you're partway there. And then all of the applications are going to be handled through the Vermont Department of Taxes, and it's going to be dispersed by the ACCD. So the Agency of Commerce and Community Development are going to be the ones that disperse the funds. So we also, some of the funding is going to be available to those businesses that I described, but also there's $5 million that are earmarked for women owned businesses and minority owned businesses. So they're going to be, they can be in a separate category as well.
Okay, that's really fast. That's great. Is that going to be the case? Like I see that there's actually going to be funds for daycares to get back up and running, and like summer camps. Is that going to be a similar thing, or?
Yeah, that's going to be a similar thing. They're going to be through the different organizations that support those, like the schools and the and daycare, because they do have to. They're going to be splitting that up. I don't know exactly the names of all the organizations that are going to be splitting it up for childcare and healthcare. But I was glad to hear that they were including dentists also in the healthcare
It's funny,
portion.
that's the question I was going to ask you, because it seems like of the healthcare workers, dentists have gotten really hit hard with their inability to they can't do telehealth visits really with dentistry, and you're right in a vulnerable position. So I'm just curious as to how that's going to roll out. Like, what do the dentists have to do?
I can find that out for you. I don't know the exact process on that, but that was one of the areas that we wanted to make sure was included in healthcare, because I think you hit it on the head, Marty, that is super vulnerable for them. Mm-hmm. I think they probably have a good idea of their techniques, but the other part of that is you want to make sure that they have access to PPEs. Mm-hmm. And I know that different organizations, certainly the professional organizations, the dental societies, and certainly the state of Vermont, that people need to make sure they're accessing the PPEs that they need to get. That sometimes if it's a big organization, they might have sources to get the PPEs. The other part of that is that they also will help guide safety in practice. So if you go to your professional organizations, as well as what the state requires, that's going to be your best bet to make sure you stay safe.
So here's like kind of the standing joke in Vermont is that Vermont doesn't exist below Montpelier. So here's my question, my tough reporter question. Wink, wink. How is it going to be equally distributed? Is it distributed first come, first serve? Or, I mean, it just seems like sometimes that is the case in southern Vermont. We just don't always get.
Yeah, you don't see the money.
We,
Show us the money.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think it's going to be certainly up to the application process and the ACCD of getting the money out from the business perspective. As far as the other ones, I don't know. I do know that the housing portion is going to go through SEFCA. So if people certainly have a connection there, that's gonna certainly help with that. But that's a really good question. If I can drill down a little bit with my group, I will get back to you on that one.
Well, I think it's just one of the things that happened with the small business loans was that some of the local banks really got on it early, and that really helped. I think we got proportionately more money than some in some larger parts of the country because our small banks were working with small businesses really fast. And I think if we had local advocates that could help people apply really fast, I think that would be the key to this sort of thing.
Right, and again, I think as long as everybody who's hearing this can get out there and make sure that certainly as far as the business grants go, if they can just keep an eye on it's going to be a notification on the tax site, and if they keep looking at that, I know as soon as it passes within 10 days, they should have access to that.
Oh, good.
As far as you're right. I think, living in a small area, and if you have a good relationship with the small banks that we have around here, that really was an asset. There were some people that did struggle if they didn't have a relationship with the bank that also had a relationship with the Small Business Administration. That was a big stumbling block for them.
Yeah. No.
and I wonder, is the application process going to be, I know with the payroll protection program, they really simplified the application process. Is the plan to also kind of simplify that end of it for the businesses?
I don't know the minutia on that one, but certainly I can add, because they were giving it to the Department of Taxes only because they have a really good and updated website. And part of the process was that we didn't want what happened to unemployment to happen. And so the tax department has the updated system, if you will. And as we all know, the unemployment did not. And so some of the money is earmarked to update some of that.
Well, that'll be one good thing moving forward.
Yeah, but you guys, I thought you recovered really well on the unemployment thing. I think everybody pitched in, and at least if it was a clunky system, at least you got an A for effort because everybody really worked
and
hard.
And again, the Vermonters that did not lose faith, I'm not saying they weren't frustrated, and rightfully so, but they said, well, on the cases that I worked on, I said, well, let me keep asking. I said, I'll be the squeaky wheel, and that they will just probably answer our questions just because I won't let up on the email. So we were able to do that, and I really appreciate everybody's faith of sticking with the program, and as soon as we could get that money available. And the ones that were sole proprietor businesses that were eligible for the pandemic unemployment assistance, that certainly helped them get through a little bit of the months of March and April and May.
Yeah.
And hopefully some of them are out and going.
So I was glad to see that some of the money is also going to not-for-profit art and cultural people, which they
Yes,
had.
and that specifically, there's $5 million going to the arts, but it doesn't mean they're not, so say they weren't able to get in on that, they could maybe get in on the 20 million also that is available, but that's for all nonprofits.
Uh-huh.
But specifically the arts, is set up separately. But the other part of that, the whole picture is that you're eligible for one grant, not multiple grants. 'Cause I
Right,
wanted to
so
make
if you
sure
take one piece, you
Right.
don't get another, yeah.
that
But that's-
we shared the money with all the different moving parts.
Well, I think that's
And so-
fair.
I think that's
It's
fair,
nice
too.
that you can carve out pieces, but, you can't
Can't
double dip. Yeah, or triple dip, or whatever.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the way it should be, so that, because there's so many people that are gonna need it. So to get a fair distribution,
Yeah.
that
yeah.
you just get one shot within whatever category you aim for.
Right.
So we're at about 4
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. We're just about out of time. I know it was we got a little start and stop action going here with some technical difficulties. We need more broadband here in southern Vermont, so we don't have these.
So you know the
I
technical
do want-
issues.
I do want to let you know that I think I appreciate the footage from Fact TV on the Black Lives Matter protest that I think went excellent. I think that was very well attended for our little area, and that's been certainly a big part of our discussions and at the House in the last week and a half anyway, as far as supporting that's the minorities in our area, certainly the business ones, we talked about that, but some of the work that our committee that I'm on, Judiciary, is going to be talking about this week is the acts relating to law enforcement training and appropriate use of force and de-escalation. So we've got our work cut out for us, and that's why I was saying it was a full court press right to the end, to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable and do whatever fixes we can, at least to start the process and keep that conversation going.
Well, thank you, Kelly. It's so wonderful having someone who will come on and talk with us about these things and get the word out, because it's so important. Like, we wouldn't know about these
It's hugely
things.
important. I think it's to the small businesses. I think that, sometimes you go to a website or you try to follow the newsletters that come out, like BDCC has been putting out newsletters, and they're great. They're very helpful. But I think sometimes having someone explain it to you a little is just extremely valuable. To the average local small business owner, they're just overwhelmed right now.
I can't even imagine. I mean, it is. And if you don't have an accountant that is really well versed in some of this stuff, I mean, there's so many moving parts and the biggest thing is maintaining. I mean, we're tough. We know we're tough Vermonters, but we want to maintain resiliency for our communities, and we've got to keep taking care of each other.
Well, great. Well, thank you again for coming on. I hope that you'll come back and talk about some of the work you're doing on the Judiciary Committee. I know you're going to need a little break after working nonstop all week and then holding down your own job, but I really appreciate you coming on, and I'd like to hear that part too.
I'd love to do it anytime.
Okay. Well, that's it for this week, folks, and we'll see you next week on the feed. Bye.
Bye.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm excited.